What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Johnny Mac here. Just wanted to give you a heads up that if you are looking for a community that is open to discussion as far as mentorship, conservation, the wild, becoming a better person, and all of that, there is a group for you on Facebook, and it is called Soul Seekers. Soul Seekers, we are all about making ourselves a better person. We're all about making sure hunting lasts for generations to come and encouraging people to get plugged in. Whether you are someone who has something to give or someone who needs to soak it up like a sponge, this is a community for you, and I strongly encourage you that if you're on Facebook to join Soul Seekers, and if you're not on Facebook, hop on there just for that group. It is only going to be as powerful as we all make it. And so just remember that life happens for you, it doesn't happen to you, and that you can't outgive good. You can't outgive good, people. I want you to understand that, and I want you to believe it, because when we believe that and we lead with courage and we lead with intention, lives are changed. Lives are transformed, just like on this podcast, transformation through primal adventure. Be blessed. Enjoy this episode. Talk soon. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soulful Hunter Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mac. Through this podcast, I'm on a mission to transform lives through primal adventure and to spread my mission of mentorship as conservation. This podcast is powered by Washington Backcountry, a resource for all hunters, both new and old. To find out more about Washington Backcountry, go to wabackcountry.com or search for Washington Backcountry on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. The Soulful Hunter Podcast is also proudly presented by T&K Hunting Gear. If you haven't heard about T&K, then it's about time you do. I've been using T&K gear out in the field and on hunts and have fallen in love with their stuff. T&K is veteran-owned and 100% made in America using only American-made products. All their gear is covered under a lifetime warranty with no questions asked. If it breaks or fails, they will fix it or replace it for free. T&K is your resource for bino harnesses, bow slings, and a lot more amazing gear. For more information about T&K hunting gear, go to tnkhunting.com or search for them on Facebook and Instagram. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Freedom on and stay soulful. The Soulful Hunter Podcast is also proudly presented by the Crazy Elk Company. Based out of the state of Washington with products made in America, they are providing solutions with gear to problems you didn't even know you had. Their tag wallet is one of those solutions, and I had the pleasure of using it on all of my hunts this last year, and it is now a mainstay in my kill kit. The tag wallet is a water-resistant zippered pouch that comes with its own reusable zip ties to safely and securely store your notch tag for quick and easy access. For more information, go to crazyelkcompany.com and use the code SOULFUL with a capital S to save 20% at checkout. Be blessed, everyone, and as always, stay soulful. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soulful Hunter Podcast. Today I got a really amazing episode and something that I have been chewing on lately and trying to understand, and with me diving into this understanding of different organizations that stand for hunting or animals or public lands or whatever it is, there is a lot of misconceptions out there. And I have Brian Lynn of the Sportsmen's Alliance here to talk about the difference between advocacy groups and conservation groups and the difference between them. I had the pleasure of going out and trying to hunt turkeys, and I do use the word try because it was the very first time I've ever hunted spring turkeys, and we did not close the distance and get any shots or anything, so that was definitely a try. However, just with being with Brian and getting to talk with him and build community and strengthen that relationship and dive into these conversations that I believe are super important for the hunting community to have, and yet they're not necessarily being had because the knowledge is not just out in the open or for people to actually be able to dissect the differences between these groups and organizations. So, Brian, thanks so much for coming on for another episode.
You betcha. Thank you.
It's always a good time. I love promoting and supporting Sportsmen's Alliance. It is an organization that I proudly stand behind and stand with, alongside with, and is one of the organizations that I can truly say um, truly fights for hunters, trappers, outdoors, wildlife without any hidden agendas. At least from my perspective and the different conversations that we had, because what you see is not always what you get when it comes to these different organizations. When you see how the sausage is made, it is not always the most appealing. So, Brian, let's dive into this. On our hunt this last weekend, we talked about like different organizations, and some different organizations out there. And, you have your BHAs, you have your, as you put it, critter clubs, as far as like your animal groups. You have like SCI or Second Amendment organizations, and these different organizations. And there are a lot of pros and a lot of cons, and not always do you get what they tell you you are getting. So let's go ahead and dive into this, and I'm going to really just pass it to you and let you just break it down. What is the difference between an advocacy group for hunting and a conservation group for hunting? And even if you want to break it down as Americans, what, in your opinion, the order of joining groups and donating money and all that stuff goes to. I'm going to go throw it to you, man. Take it away.
All right. Well, there is no real priority. I guess that's a personal preference, but it's important to have all sides of it. We kind of say that you should pick your Second Amendment group that you want to protect your gun rights, pick your favorite critter club or two that you want to belong to, and then pick an advocacy organization that protects your hunting rights and fights for you. And where it gets confusing a lot for people is everybody lumps everything under a conservation group. If you're a nonprofit in the hunting space, you're automatically a conservation group. That's not always true. The Sportsmen's Alliance is not a conservation organization. We're an advocacy organization. We may dabble in it. We'll have, youth programming, which kind of dovetails with a lot of conservation organizations, have events and stuff, but we don't have chunks of land that we're out acquiring for use, rehabilitating to make it better habitat. We don't have a mascot to hold up, an elk, a deer, a duck. What we're doing is working in the courts, state and federal court. We're working in all 50 state legislatures, and we're working at the ballot box. What we hold up is a legal document, and that's not sexy and it's not exciting, but it's important. If all of this hunting, loss, advancements, whatever, is all going to be decided either in the legislature or the court system at the end of the day. We've had it taken away in states, here in Washington, by the ballot box. So that's where it's going to be won and lost: legislatures, court systems, or the ballot box. And if you don't have advocacy organizations advocating for your right to hunt and advocating for the hunter, angler, and trapper, eventually the conservation organizations go away. Because if they take seasons away and they take methods and means away, pretty soon there isn't enough critters to hunt, and there isn't anybody hunting them because it's banned. And so, I've had the discussion with guys in the conservation space. What we do as an advocacy organization allows them to do what they do, and it works together. It's a symbiotic relationship, two sides of a coin, however you want to look at it, that you need, and that we need as sportsmen. We need that full circle of protection: gun rights, habitat management, and increasing that for your different critter groups. And you need advocates for your hunting rights in state and federal courts, legislatures, and at the ballot box.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's so interesting. Like, more often than not, especially in rural America, there's this concept of like, hey, just leave me alone.
Yeah.
And that's all good and well until the people that say just leave me alone aren't involved in protecting and defending what they love or what they want to pursue. Going back to that whole Second Amendment thing, there's a lot of heat that comes around the Second Amendment, or the NRA specifically, and internal turmoil and their in my opinion, lack of defense of true Second Amendment beliefs and policies. But one of the organizations that you mentioned, and I didn't even know existed, is actually out of Bellevue, Washington, right? And
Yeah.
what is that organization called?
The Second Amendment Foundation.
Yes.
And they have a lot of parallels with the Sportsmen's Alliance. They're smaller, but they get in there and bare knuckle fight and are involved in a lot of lawsuits, filing them, and also stepping in as an intervener to protect gun rights. So they're a good little group, especially being out of Washington State is pretty impressive because we're under constant attack here.
Right. It's so amazing. So, I go back to the whole Second Amendment thing first. I totally agree. If we don't have the ability to defend ourselves against tyranny, oppression, or any other uh, threat, both foreign and domestic, it doesn't matter about hunting. Hunting is not on the forefront of the mind if we are not safe in our own homes and in our own property. So, first and foremost, that. I actually would go the second, and I'd put Sportsman's Alliance as number two because you guys are fighting, like you said, for the general good of hunting. And if those, whether it's in a specific state or a specific animal or a specific type of, whether it's trapping or a specific type of hunting, whether with hounds or baits or whatever,
Yeah.
it's a domino effect. If one goes, then all of a sudden there's a precedent, and that precedent is easily used and transferable across state lines and in the courts. So this is why I'm such a huge proponent of Sportsman's Alliance and why I wanted to have you guys on here and why, and I don't use the word should very often. I truly believe if you're a hunter, a trapper, or an angler, you should be a member of Sportsman's Alliance. I highly and strongly encourage everyone. And it's only, you can give as much as you want, and don't let the dollar amount scare you. But the minimum amount is $35 for annual membership. I
Yeah.
mean, dude,
Yeah.
that's a killer
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah. And that's, we structured it so you can join at any level. Of course, you get more benefits the more you join at the higher levels, but you can donate to the foundation or the legal defense fund. Like if that's what you really see as a threat, you can donate directly to the legal defense fund, which goes straight into the lawsuits. We're in the grizzly lawsuit to delist the grizzly bear, wolves in the Great Lakes states. Well, now it's morphing into the lower 48 since the Trump administration delisted them. Everybody's suing. We're getting involved as interveners in that case. So there's two federal cases. The Alaska rule change case, which we won under the Trump administration, is now being challenged by the Humane Society and other groups under the Biden administration. So we'll see what happens there. We might have to get back involved there. Of course, there's the closure stuff in Unit 23 and 26A in Alaska to non-locals, only subsistence hunters. That could end up as a lawsuit. And then we've had the Jersey Bear lawsuit for a while too. So if that's what trips your trigger, you can do that. So we set it up so you can pretty much join any way you want. You got a rod and gun club, you're part of a dog club, like NARA or HRC. You can join as a club there at, I think it's like $250 for a club, which, among 25 or 50 or 100 people isn't much at all. And if you're a business, there's business partnerships starting at $2,500 for a business. You get an ad in the magazine, you get sponsorship of emails that go out to the entire list. So there's different benefits. It's a tax write-off for you, of course, because it's defending or protecting your business interests. So there's any number of ways to get involved with us and help us protect your passions.
Yeah, totally. And it is a right hand and a left hand thing. So once again, I'm not devaluing critter clubs,
No.
Wild Turkey Federation, Rocky Mountain Elk, mule deer, all that stuff. And if you don't have someone defending hunting, fishing, and trapping, then all those other clubs don't matter in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of them, and this is where the advocacy versus conservation gets a little, blurry at times because they do, the critter clubs get involved in advocacy. Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation is a partner of ours for the Wolves and Bears delistings. So they do cross over and help with legal costs and legal arguments and everything. So they do cross lines, but the main focus is habitat acquisition, habitat improvement, and stuff, which as a purely advocacy organization we don't have. We're fighting the legal thought processes and arguments out there. And for the Sportsmen's Alliance, that's our only focus. There's other advocacy organizations out there that are partners with us and that are great, but they also do other things, have record books or have, other side things, or the Second Amendment or whatever. They got their hands in a lot of pots. We're very small, we're very focused, and the only thing we focus on is protecting sportsmen. Don't care how, where, it's not just public lands. That's a big focus, but dog hunters, bait hunters, breeders. That's what's getting really crazy now, and it's a very nuanced argument, is sporting dogs and breeding, and these uh, puppy mill bills, to stop puppy mills, which, yeah, I'm all for that, but the language in them catches legitimate sporting dog breeders that are competing and working and trying to produce good bloodlines. So we kind of work across the spectrum. If somebody's trying to take away hunting, fishing, trapping, we're going to step in and bare knuckle brawl as much as we can and as long as we can.
Right. So let's define these words. So we have advocacy and conservation. And just off the top of my head, without looking at any like dictionary verbiage for these, Brian, how would you define what advocacy is, and then how would you define what conservation is?
Conservation, I would probably go with your boots on the ground, habitat acquisition and improvement. A lot of your critter clubs and what their focus is. Excuse me. Your advocacy organizations are the ones who are advocating for you in the bigger picture, in the courts, in the legislatures. If you don't have a voice in the legislature, your state legislature, the politicians aren't going to hear you, and they don't care. And what they do here is a whole bunch of animal rights activists and anti-hunters complaining. And so they need somebody to go in there and give them a call or walk into their office and tell them, no, here's the problem with this, and explain it to them, which we do a lot. Our guys are calling constantly and talking to guys and talking to the legislators, both, on both sides of the aisle. Here's our issue with it. Here's how to fix it. What's your goal? Here's how to fix it. Here's where we won't get on you. And most of the time they'll listen, but a lot of times they don't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's so easy. See, this is one of the issues with humanity these days, is everyone is quick to refer to an outside source for knowledge and information. No one, and I'm not going to say no one, that's a broad statement. Very few people are the retainers of their own knowledge. This is my big issue with like Siri or Alexa or all this stuff. Hey Alexa, what's the weather today? Hey Siri, what's the weather? Hey, people are always constantly going outside. Now, we do reach out for knowledge, but the issue is that we are not retaining knowledge. And so I wanted to actually define what advocacy was based off of dictionaries. And it says the act of pleading or arguing in favor of something, such as a cause, an idea, or a policy. And I was like, yes. If you are not on the forefront saying hunting is important, fishing is important, trapping is important, and it's not one or the other, it is an and, fishing and trapping and hunting. We can't let one go without the other. It's a right hand, it's a left hand. Both of those work symbiotically. It is the outdoors. And if there are no people that are going to stand in courage, of not afraid of judgment, condemnation, hatred, or anything else, and we allow fear to run our lives and to rule our lives, then hunting is going to get the chopping block very quickly, because
Yeah.
in today's society, there is this, well, mainstream media is pushing a narrative, period, that is not healthy and is fear-based. And so if mainstream media, no matter whether it is the populist idea or the minority idea, it's still in control of who's pushing the thoughts. We need people who are courageous enough to invest in what they love. And if it's time, give time. It's your voice, give your voice. If it's your money, give your money. And if it's all of those, give all of them. And that's exactly why I started Washington Backcountry and the Soulful Hunter podcast, because I'm tired of sitting on the sidelines and waiting for somebody else to do something.
Awesome.
We cannot be passive contributors, or even, I won't even say contributors. We can't just sit on the sidelines and have someone else fight the battle. America was not formed on compliance, right? Fight for what you want. I always talk about on this podcast, you need to identify what it is you want, so that when you identify it, you know how to go get it or what you need to do in order to accomplish it. And I want to see hunting, fishing, trapping last for generations to come. And I think this is where the advocacy gets confused with conservation, because the definition of conservation, as far as a dictionary term, is the act or process of conserving. Now, I don't like using the words to define a word, so the act or process of preservation or restoration from loss, damage, or neglect. Now, I love animals. Hunters love animals. There's a common misconception that we hate animals because we kill them. We love them and we kill them. Every time you pull a carrot out of a garden, you're killing that carrot because you're taking it from its life source. So, but it doesn't mean you hate the carrot. You actually love it so much that you are enjoying it, and it brings nourishment and fulfillment to your soul, your body, your mind. So, animal groups such as Rocky Mountain Elk, National Wild Turkey Federation, Ducks Unlimited, Mule Deer Foundation, all these are for preservation, restoration from loss, damage, or neglect towards that critter or habitat. Very important. However, it's very hard for me in the state of Washington, who is a newer hunter. It's like, okay, well, why do I want to join a critter club that I don't necessarily have any real specific draw to? So I recently found the Western Bear Foundation, because I am a very huge proponent of bear hunting and the concept of what bears do, not only for food source and all the other things they provide, but the challenge that they create for humans. Oh, there it is, the cover of Bear Hunting Magazine, March and April. I heard that has a pretty good article in it.
I don't know about that cover, though.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that guy, he could use a haircut. But the idea is that the bears, specifically for me, it's a courage thing. Like, it's easier to shoot a prey animal. To go chase a predator, take some grit, take some cojones, take some, okay, I got to do this. It takes you looking in the mirror and being like, okay, this is where the rubber meets the road. Now, that is me personally, and that is specifically how this idea of the Soulful Hunter got started and all that. Going back to the Sportsmen's Alliance, if there's not an organization like you defending, I mean, I have very rarely written emails or called my politicians. So therefore, I have a strong opinion, I have a strong perspective, and yet very little action is taken. Everyone has opinion. It's like, I used to coach football, and I used to coach a lot of sports, and you have all the parents on the sidelines going, oh, that coach, he should have done this, he should have done that. I can't believe he's still running this play. Put him in. And there's this concept, it's like everyone is the professional from the sideline, but they're not willing or courageous enough to step into the game.
Yeah.
Let's see you volunteer your time, and let's see you give to these other souls to improve them in their life and into their hobbies. So take that coaching, take sports, apply it to hunting, apply it to fishing, trapping, the outdoors. It's very easy to be that sideline person, being like, that person, what the heck's going on? Well,
Well, yeah.
be that person.
We see that on, social media. I'll post up these alerts that we have and the threats, and it's a call to action. We're asking people in that state or wherever to call. Here's the phone number. We'll give you the dang phone number, or here's the email,
Yeah.
or here's the link to find them. One or two clicks and you got it, and just call them. Pick up the phone and call them. But no, most people just sit on there and, like you said, yell from the sidelines and make comments on social media, but don't actually take the next step of getting in the game and doing this. And if they did, like if a politician gets 10 phone calls, they start freaking out. Literally, it's all it takes. If they get 20, 30, 50, 100, now they're worried because they know that people are lazy and aren't going to do this. So if there's 10, 20, 30, 50 people calling, they know there's 10-fold or 100-fold out there who feel the same way that aren't doing anything. And now they're starting to worry about constituents and votes and reelection and fundraising and everything else. So, get in the game, quit being the angry parent on the sideline, only making stupid comments on social media. Pick up the phone and put your money where your mouth is, basically, and call.
It's so
You know,
true. So true.
That's
I could
all it
only
takes.
I could only imagine that one person calling probably, and I'm taking a guess here, just like what you said, probably represents at least 100 people
Yeah.
for every one phone call. And so that 10 phone calls turns into
Yeah.
1,000 people real quick of their constituents saying, you better do something. It's we the people, not you, the politician. And
Yeah. And it doesn't sound like much, 10 people, 1,000 people, but when you're talking at the state level, and then you're talking about the city level where these people are coming from and their voting block is, it could just be here in Spokane or, where you live. It's a small geographical area that 1,000 people starts to have an impact. We're not talking national here. We're talking state level legislation. And within that, we're talking districts, and the districts have X number of people. So, 1,000 people or 2,000 people represented by 20 phone calls starts to have a huge echo and makes a difference.
yes. And you know what? Here's the problem that I have with like public education. That's never taught. That this type of stuff is not mainstream knowledge about
Yeah.
the ability that, yes, we vote for our elected officials, and yet our elected officials need to be able to hear from us and put them in a position to answer from us. One of the best and biggest and most important and impressive things about Sportsmen's Alliance is that when I reach out to Sportsmen's Alliance, I get a response.
Yeah.
And so in some of our our community events that we've hosted within Washington Backcountry over the last couple of years, I've reached out to different conservation organizations, and I specifically use conservation because this is before I really found out about Sportsmen's Alliance, and I wasn't getting responses. Like, hey, here's an opportunity for you to promote your club and sign up new members, come to this event. And it's like pulling teeth almost. Now, I'm not throwing anyone under the bus on this. I do want to just say that this is why I am promoting Sportsmen's Alliance and why you as an outdoorsman, you as a listener, stand for something or fall for anything. It's time. It is time. The days of sitting on the sideline and enjoying a one deer tag for the entire season, any weapon, no matter what state you're in, and just, $5 tags and here and there and good old boy stories. Those days are gone. It's time to fight. And if you want this to last for generations to come, you got to get in the fight.
Exactly.
Man,
Amen.
dude, let's wrap it up. I mean, come on. Brian, from your perspective, what are some of the biggest needs that Sportsmen's Alliance could use for support on top of the financial aspects? Because that obviously money is is what makes the world go round for the most part. So, how else can people get involved to support Sportsmen's Alliance?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, you hate to even say it when I get asked this question. The financial thing is the biggest thing. Like at the end of the day, all of this will be decided in the legislature or the court system. And it costs money to pay lobbyists, it costs money to go out there and see them, and it costs money to pay lawyers to fight these battles. So at the end of the day, the money makes the world go round. But there's a lot of other ways to get involved, and that we already touched on is become involved, get off the sidelines and become an advocate, become just make the phone call. It can be uncomfortable at first. Make the phone call or send the email. We don't do a whole lot of the form letter stuff because that's easy for a politician's aide to just siphon off when they all come in with the same subject line and same message, and they just put it in a folder and disregard it. If you want to make a difference, pick up the phone and call that legislator.
Eh,
That's the biggest thing.
Okay, and we're going to go through a little education lesson right here. For those of you who do not understand how to identify who your representative is for your state and your county or your region, Brian, on Sportsmen's Alliance, is there a way to break that down and find that out? Or from your own personal experience, what's the easiest way to identify that?
Yeah, you can just go right on our site there under government affairs, and there's a drop down,
Yep.
the Legislative Action Center, and it'll just ask you to put your address in.
Okay, I'm doing it right now, everybody, as we speak for all of you. Let's see here. Typing this out.
And
Okay.
that link is put into almost every single one of our alerts. All you gotta do is click it.
Perfect. So I just typed in my address. It pulled up elected officials. It said federal elected officials. It pulls up president. It pulls up state senators. And it has one representative for the state of Washington, and then it goes state representatives, our governor, a couple representatives here. And so, when was the last time this was updated? How often does this get updated?
It pulls in, so it should be updated. It pulls in from StateNet, I believe.
Okay, perfect. See, and that's wonderful. I'm gonna have to really dive into all this.
Yeah, and so we'll put that link in our alerts to make it easier. And a lot of times when a bill is in a committee, we'll list out the committee members with their phone numbers or with their emails if they're available. A lot of times, I can't remember, just last week we were posting something, it was for California, and they don't put their emails. They don't make their emails public. It just is a form letter that goes to them. You fill out a contact form, and it's all the same for all of them. So, we listed the phone numbers. So, a lot of times you don't even have to go to the link. You can it'll say contact the committee members, representative or senator so-and-so. Here's the phone number,
Good.
pick
Dude,
up the phone.
yeah, since when did politician equal weasel and scoundrel, right?
I think it's pretty much always been there.
Oh my goodness. I mean, this is the fact that a public employee politician who works for the people or supposed to work for the people, who is voted in by the people, doesn't list their phone number or their email address in order for
Yeah.
their constituents to get a hold of them.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty criminal to me, and it sounds like it's time for America and Americans to stand up for what they believe in and start getting much more active. And we always talk. You hear about activists all the time. Well, it's time to be an activist for freedom, for hunting, for a better life, for the Second Amendment, for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Amen.
Dude, I love it. You're getting me all fired up on a Wednesday morning, Brian. I love this. Okay, Brian, is there anything else we're missing or anything you feel like needs to be said or shared within this?
Well, we just need to go back out and kill one of those turkeys that was taunting us all weekend. That's about it.
Oh, man. Hey, for all you listeners out there, spring turkey hunting, I learned is very frustrating. And with that being said, it is a great reminder that it's not about the kill. It is about just being out in nature, because it's so often that we get so tunnel vision and it's like, okay, this is our goal. This is our goal. And it's like, no, I still need to lead with gratitude and just be grateful for the relationships and the bonds and sitting around a campfire and
A good time, yeah.
dude, good times. So many jokes and laughs were had. And
Yeah. Even when it was miserable, I mean, that now that you're past the misery part, it's like, okay, I can laugh about it. That's part of it.
yep.
It's like, oh, it's miserable out there sitting there in the rain and cold and waiting for him to come by, headed to the roost. And yeah, no, yeah. Everybody was mad at me, I think.
No,
We're
definitely
sitting
not.
here, damn it.
Oh man. Well, I tell you, hindsight is definitely 2020. Ain't that the truth?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So and with hindsight being 2020, don't be quiet and silent and allow hunting rights, Second Amendment rights, animal rights, all this stuff get taken away and then be like, oh man, I really wish I had it.
Exactly.
Because it's a slippery slope. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in this episode. I hope you have a clear understanding of the difference between advocacy organizations and conservation organizations and why it's important to get involved in both. And in my own opinion, specifically advocacy organizations first and foremost, because without the ability to defend hunting, fishing, and trapping, the animal organizations, we're just going to be nature watchers after that. So everybody, be blessed, be of good cheer, get active, get involved, take a stand for what you believe in, and let's fight this good fight because it's worth fighting for. Brian, thank you so much for tuning in. I just want to let all the listeners know that there is going to be links to the show notes for Sportsmen's Alliance, so you can sign up and be a member. You can go to sportsmensalliance.org, and that's MEN, sportsmensalliance.org, not to be confused with Sportsman's Alliance.
Yeah, happens all the time.
It happens all the time. I want to clarify that. Get involved, and not only get involved in that way, start talking about hunting. Start talking about how you're proud to be a member of an organization and start sharing it with your community, whether it's around the water cooler at work, whether it is in a coffee shop or whatever it is. Be loud, be proud, be a hunter, be a trapper, be a fisherman, and just stand for something. Be blessed, everybody. As always, freedom on and stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast, I'd love it if you could go ahead and give this a rating as well as subscribe. Also, you can check us out on Instagram under the Soulful Hunter Podcast. Make sure to tag us in pictures and posts and use the hashtag Soulful Hunter. To find out more about the Soulful Hunter Podcast, go to soulfulhunter.com and be sure to follow the podcast as we are going to be bringing you a lot of great information, insight, and changing lives through primal adventure. I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Stay tuned and stay soulful.